Hi everyone, my name's Will Belida. I'm a software engineer and cloud architect, and in this video we're going to create a Azure deployment environment using the Azure portal. And the reason why I'm doing this is I did a video on Azure deployment environments and introduced the core concepts and showed you how to do that in Bicep, or how to deploy all the resources in Bicep. And I got some feedback. It was a little hard to follow, so I'm going to do another video where in this one we're going to actually build everything via ClickOps, doing it through the portal. If you want to go back to that video, if you're deploying Azure deployment environments in your own environment and you're going to use infrastructure as code, and that's the way I recommend that you do that, please go ahead and check out that video. I'll post a link to it in the description. But if you're unsure of all the moving parts and all the components, this video is really designed to give you that visual representation in the portal so you can actually see how everything relates to each other. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up all the resources in Azure Deployment Environments to enable a self-service deployment environment for your developer teams. So what we're going to do is we're going to create and configure a dev center, add a catalog to that dev center, define some environment types, associate a project with the dev center, add some environment types, and then allow developers access to the project so we can actually go to that portal and self-serve and provision our own environment. So the first thing we're going to do is configure the dev center. Now, the dev center is the top level resource for Azure deployment environments that contains a collection of development projects. So in the dev center, you will specify a common configuration for your projects, such as catalogs with the application templates and the types of environments to which development teams can deploy their code. And typically this is done by platform engineers or your platform engineering team. So they'll set up the dev center, attach external catalogs to the dev center, creates projects, and then provides access to those projects to your development teams. So then your development teams can go ahead and create environments by using environment definitions, and then they can connect to individual resources and deploy their applications on top of those resources. Cool, so first thing we're going to do is create our dev center and attach a catalog to it. Now, the catalog contains the application templates called environment definitions that your development teams can use to create environments. So in this video, what I'm going to do, I have a dev catalog on my GitHub repository, which contains just a very simple Bicep template for a container app. So you can go to this link. I'll post a link to it in the description below. But this is just a very basic template for all the resources that you need for a container app. So you've got your log analytics workspace, you've got your container app environment, and also a container app. Cool, so what I want to do first is look for Dev Center. So just type in Dev Center, click on that. And I should see Dev Center here. This is the resource I want to create. So I'll go ahead, click Create, and then Dev Center. And then from here, I should be able to create a new resource group. So ADE portal, spell portal right, there we go. Click OK. And then I'm just going to go will be dev center 2. Hopefully that should be okay. And then I can attach quick start catalogs. So I can attach an Azure deployment environment definitions and also DevBox customization tasks. So remember, Azure DevBox and Microsoft DevBox and Azure deployment environments share the same resource under Dev Center. But for here, we can actually go ahead and just leave that Azure Deployment Environment definition there. Cool, so I'm going to click on Create, Review and Create, and then create that resource. So I'm going to let that do its thing, and once it's created, we'll be able to go and configure the managed identity for the Dev Center. Cool, so that's completed. So now what we need to do is actually configure the managed identity for our Dev Center. So to allow us to be able to create environments, the Dev Center is going to need some permissions on the subscription. Now you can attach an identity to the Dev Center and then assign the necessary permissions to that identity. And this can either be a system assigned managed identity or a user assigned managed identity. So if I go to this resource now, what we're going to do is we're going to configure a system assigned identity for our Dev Center. And that's fairly straightforward. So all I need to do is come down to identity here and then just switch that on and click save. So that's going to enable the system assigned managed identity. And that's going to be registered with Microsoft Entra. And then once that's registered, the Dev Center instance that I've just created can be granted permissions to access resources protected by Microsoft Entra ID. So I'm going to click yes. That's going to go ahead and enable my system assigned managed identity. This might take a few minutes, so in the interest of time, I will speed this up. And there we go. So now our system assigned identity has been enabled. So now what we need to do is assign roles for the Dev Center managed identity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this Azure role assignments here. And I'm going to need a couple of permissions over these subscriptions. So what I'm going to do is add role assignment. And over the subscription, I am going to select the contributor role. So there we go, and click Save. And then the other role that I need over the subscription is a user access administrator role. Just there we go. So just search for that there, user access administrator. There we go, and I'll click Save. Cool, there we go. So that's been added. So now I can go ahead and create environment types. Now we can use environment types to help us define the different types of environments your development teams can deploy. And what's great about that is you can apply different settings for each environment type. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my Dev Center resource. And underneath my environment configuration, I'm going to click environment types. And then I'm going to create a new environment. And for this one, I'm just going to call this non-prod. There we go. And we can add tags to this as well, but I'm just going to go ahead and add that for now. Now, an environment type that you add to your Dev Center is available to each project in the Dev Center, but environment types aren't enabled by default. So when you enable an environment type at the project level, the environment type determines the managed identity and subscriptions that are used to go ahead and deploy environments. So we talked about projects, so let's go ahead and actually create one. Now, in Azure Deployment Environments, a project represents a team or a business function within the organization. So, for example, you might have a data domain or a digital domain. You might have a business function that represents ordering or any kind of e-commerce function that I can't really think of right now. But essentially, that's how you would divide up your projects. And those projects might have different environments, so development, staging, production environments. It really depends on the project. So when you associate a project with a Dev Center, all the settings for the Dev Center are automatically applied to the project. And each project can only be assigned to one Dev Center. So let's go ahead and create a project. So under Manage, I've got projects here. I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to click Create. So this is going to go ahead and create a project for me. So I'm going to go and assign that to the Dev Center that I've just created now. I'm going to put will be test project. There we go. And you can also add a description. Why is that not? So if I go, that should be okay. So if I click on review and create, yep, there it goes. The portal was just taking a bit of time. So I click on review and create. So that should be everything that I need. You can also apply tags to this as well. I'm not going to do that for now. If you're working with DevBox, you can apply DevBox limits to your project, and you can limit how many DevBox a developer can provision. But we're not dealing with Microsoft DevBox right now, so we'll just go ahead and click Create. Cool, so my project has been created. So if I go to the resource, I should see that my project has been set up. And it belongs to the Dev Center that we created earlier on in this video. So now we can go ahead and create project environment types. So in Azure Deployment Environments, project environment types are a subset of the environment types that you configure for the Dev Center. And this helps you pre-configure the types of environments that your specific development teams can go ahead and create. So in order to create a project environment type, scroll down here under Environment Configuration, click on Environment Types. And I should be able to add a new environment type. So if I click on Add Environment Type, there's a couple of things that I can do to create this environment type. So the type I'm going to create, we'll use non-prod. So this is a dev center level environment to enable for the specific project. I then choose the subscription, which I'm going to do the deployment in, and then I can choose a deployment identity. And here we can use either a system assigned managed identity for deployment, or I can go ahead and attach a user assigned deployment identity. So I'm just going to go ahead and use the system assigned managed identity for now. And then I can go ahead and assign some environment creator roles. So at least one identity, either system assigned or user assigned, must be enabled for the deployment identity. This identity is used to perform the environment deployment on behalf of the developer. So here you can provide additional access for users or for a group of users, and you can give them a role. But essentially the creator roles that we want to give to the system assigned identity, if I open that up, are the owner role. Oh, sorry, not the owner role, the contributor role, and the user access administrator role. So this identity that's attached to the dev center should be assigned the contributor and user access administrator roles for access to the deployment subscription for each environment type. I can also add some tags on this if I really wanted to, but for now I'm just going to go ahead and add. And that should be enough for my project environment type to be created. And there we go. So that's enabled. Cool. So now that we have an environment type, before we go ahead and enable our developers to create environments based on the environment types in the project, we're going to have to provide them access through a role assignment at the level of the project. So the role that we need is the deployment environments user role, and this will enable our users to create, manage, and delete their own environments. So what I want to do, I'm in my project here. So if I go into access control, I want to add a role assignment here. So the role assignment that we're going to use is that deployment environment user role. So I'll just go ahead. Oh, I don't even need to type it. There it is. So that's the one I need. And then I'm going to assign that to myself. So I just type in Will the leader at Mental. There we go. So that's my work email address. Remember, with Microsoft Dev Center, it's not going to work for your personal or guest accounts. So there we go. I just click on review and assign. So that's going to assign that deployment environment user role for myself on this test project. Fantastic. Cool. So now what I want to do is add a catalog to my dev center. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my dev center here. And what I need to do is add a new catalog for my Azure deployment environment. So what catalogs do is they help provide a set of curated infrastructure as code templates known as environment definitions for your developer teams to go ahead and create environments. Now we can attach our own source control repository from GitHub or Azure DevOps as catalogs, and then specify the folder where our environment definitions sit. And then what deployment environments will do is they'll scan that folder for environment definitions and make them available for dev teams to go ahead and create environments. So what I want to do to add my catalog from GitHub, I'm going to scroll down and under environment configurations, click on catalogs. So what you can see here is I've already got the quick start environment definitions synced for me, because when we created this, we left that checkbox open. You don't have to use that if you don't want to. So what we can do instead is use our own catalogs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on add. And then from here, we can see some options to add a catalog. So I'm just going to go with the dev catalog. And I can choose the source of where this catalog is going to be stored from. So we can get it from Azure DevOps or GitHub, or use Microsoft's Quick Start catalog. So what I'm going to do is click on GitHub, and then from here we can authenticate either using the GitHub app or the personal access token. So in the last video, when I was showing everything through Bicep, we used a personal access token. But for here, I'm just going to use the GitHub application. And I'm going to go ahead and sign in with GitHub. Now, I've already enabled the GitHub app for my GitHub account, But essentially what happens is you go and you install the Microsoft Dev Center application within your GitHub environment, and then you can either choose or have the option for that app to read all of your repositories or only some of your repositories. So I've chosen only some because I want to limit the amount of repositories I want to pull. I want Dev Center to be able to access. So to enable or get access to this dev catalog sample that I've got here, all I need to do is click on that, and there's my dev catalog sample. From here, we can choose a branch. So I'm going to use the main branch. It's the only branch I have. And then for the folder path, I'm going to click on environments. So if I go into this repository now, this environments folder has just got a folder called Bicep templates that contains my simple container app Bicep template. Now, Azure Deployment Environments support Terraform and Pulumi as well. So if I had templates for Terraform, if I had templates for Pulumi, Azure Deployment Environments could also pick that up. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. And then that's going to connect to my dev catalog that I've got in my GitHub repository. Now, as you're working with your catalogs and you'll update your catalogs with new environment definitions or new infrastructure as code templates, you can actually go ahead and sync those templates. So you could either do this manually. So essentially go to the portal, click on that, and then sync that repository just by clicking on sync. Or you can automatically sync it. So when you configure that to sync automatically, what deployment environments will do is they'll scan through the repository every 30 minutes and then make the latest list of environment definitions available to all of the associated projects within your dev center, which I think is pretty cool. And you could also use this to go ahead and delete catalogs as and when you need to. And to see like how what the status of these catalog syncs are, you can use the AZ CLI, or you can actually go ahead and view that within the portal. Cool. So those syncs were successful. So now we have the quick start environment definitions that's made available by Microsoft, and also our own personal catalog available to our projects within Microsoft Dev Center. So now what we can do is go ahead and create and access an environment in Azure Deployment Environments by using the developer portal. So if I click on this tab here, devportal.microsoft.com, this is the Microsoft developer portal. So I can go ahead and create a new environment. And within my new environment, I'm going to just call it WV Test App. And then I can select a project. So I'll select that WV Test project that I created earlier. Here I can choose a environment type. So I've got non-prod for now, but if I had other environment types, I could go ahead and select those. And then I can go ahead and select an environment definition. And this will be a drop down of all the different templates that are made available to us in our catalog. So I've got some templates that have been made available from the Microsoft Quick Start. But I've also got my container app within my dev catalog that I added just now. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And the neat thing that you can do with this is you can actually enable scheduled deletion. So say if you only need this container app for a certain period of time, I can go ahead and enable a scheduled deletion where I can select the time, date, and also the time of when this environment will be automatically deleted. I'll leave this unchecked for now, but that's a really cool feature to have. Say if you're working on a feature or if you're doing some development work, and then at the end of the day, you forget to delete all the resources, Azure Deployment Environments can take care of that for you, which is pretty cool. So I'll click on next, and then the parameters for my container app. So one thing I need to show you, if I go back into my GitHub repository, open up the simple container app folder and click on environment YAML, this will essentially be the parameters file or the definition of my template, which will include the parameters that I can provide to that template. So here I've got some parameters for my CPU, my memory size. I can come down here, I can select the container image that I want to deploy. I've got default types here, which is pretty cool. I can also choose which location I'm going to deploy my container app environment to. So if I go back into the developer portal, instead of having to kind of code that up myself, maybe add those as Azure DevOps environment variables or GitHub environment variables, I can actually just use a kind of like a UI or a portal-like experience to go ahead and easily provision these resources for me. So if I choose a location, I'm going to choose Australia East, then number of CPU cores, I'll just choose 0.5, and then I'm going to go ahead and create that. So that's going to create my container app environment, and my log analytics workspace. So we're going to let that create. And once that's done, we'll come back and see what's been provisioned. Cool. So through the power of video editing, my environment has been deployed. So if I want to go ahead and see the resources that have been created, I just go and click on environment resources. Just quickly sign into Azure, and then I'll be taken to a resource group containing all of the resources that are defined in that template. So here I've got my container app environment, and also log analytics workspace. So this is really, really cool because rather than having to say, go to a repository where all of these templates are defined, having to clone that down and then deploy that through my local machine, essentially what I've been able to do is attach this GitHub repository as a catalog to this dev center that we've created. And then from the Microsoft Developer Portal, I've gone ahead and created a new environment which has deployed all the resources that I need. So as an application developer, I can go ahead and deploy my application to this container app without worrying about what permissions I need, what access I might require to go ahead and provision the resources I need to support that application that I'm developing. Cool, so that wraps up this video. So what we did, we created a dev center, configured it with an identity, attached a catalog that we own within GitHub. We defined some environment types. We then created a project and then granted project access to the development team, which was myself in this case. And we also created environments as well. Hopefully this is a lot more straightforward than just jumping into the Bicep code example. If you do want to learn how to actually build all of these resources using Bicep, I'll leave a link to that video in the description. I recommend you go and check that out because that approach is slightly different in the way that we had to attach our dev catalog. But that code is also available on my GitHub, which I'll also leave a link to in the description below. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, give it a like. If you want to see more content on Azure Deployment Environments, Microsoft DevBox, etc., please subscribe. No matter where you are in the world, I hope you're having a great day, and we'll see you all next time.